Okay, today we are going to learn the most important topic in JavaScript, that is promise. Okay, I know everyone knows like what is a promise in real life, right? So it is also similar kind of thing. Okay, but really interesting. Let's jump into the topic and we can learn. Okay, team, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we have already learned the callbacks and callback health and the problem with the callback health, because we will lose our control on the code if we use the callback health. So how to solve that problem? The solution is a promise. Okay. So to understand promise, we need to spend a lot of time. So I will try to explain in different ways in detail. Okay, so we can take one example that if you're already used the fetch API, that means you already used a promise. Okay, so few days back, okay, we have written some code, right? Um, while we are trying to understand um, the importance of the micro task queue, we have taken example that fetch, if you give a URL, so it will fetch the details, and at the time we just blindly use this code, like then another callback, then another callback. But what is this then, and how it is working, and everything we are going to learn today. Okay, so if we have done this, means that already we have used promises, but without understanding promises we have used already. So now we are going to understand in detail. So let's see. So first, I will explain what is a promise. A simple thing. What is a promise? A promise is a object. Okay. In JavaScript, we can create objects, right? So this promise also a object only. Nothing more than that. But what is the importance of that? Is we can understand. So promise, and this promise will hold the status of an asynchronous call. So I will show you exact properties of that promise, but in general I'm explaining. So it will hold the status of a asynchronous call. Suppose if you see, if we have done asynchronous call, we don't know whether it is successful or not, right? So for that, for that information, that information, it will maintain, this promise will maintain that information in this object. Okay, let's see, because we need to discuss a lot to understand this. So in general, whenever we have given any asynchronous call, so if you have sent a request to the server, there is a possibility that the still that is pending, right? Still that asynchronous call status is pending. Okay, another thing is fulfilled. Okay, what is the meaning of fulfill, Pankaj?
Fulfilled when the task has completed, I guess.
Yes, means task, whatever the task you have given, whatever the request you have given, so that is completed successfully, and that means the state of that asynchronous call, we can say that it is fulfilled, right? And rejected means
It is not completed. There is an error or something,
something
server
went,
error, something here.
wrong, or something happened, or that rejected means the state, we got the negative results. That means we can simply say that rejected, because any asynchronous call, this is the possibility, right? Maybe that is still need to get some data, or still need to hit the server, still need to get the response. In that situation, the asynchronous call status will be a pending state. And if the request went to the server and server processed the request, and if that server send a response, then we can say that that is the fulfillment. And suppose if you have sent a request to the server, maybe if you missed the authentication token, or you didn't provide any information, or due to some network call, or server is not working properly, by any reason, there is a chance that the request may get failed or rejected or maybe error. So in all these categories, we can consider in a state called rejected. So that means any asynchronous call, any asynchronous, there is a possibility that maybe that is pending, that is fulfilled, and that is rejected. Okay, now tell me, in general, if this asynchronous call is fulfilled, that means what you will expect. You have sent a request to a server. If it is successful, what you will expect? What will expect? Response, right? That is very
Yes, sir.
important. So if you
Yes.
see here, we are sending a request. What we are expecting? Some data, right? So JSON placeholder, some to dos. So we are expecting some JSON data. Once it is fulfilled, that means we need to get the data, right? Especially for this example, whenever we hit this request to the server, like this, whenever we hit the request to the server like this, so we got the response, we got the data. So that is our expectation. Whenever you send a request through JavaScript code, we need this data, right? That is response. Okay, suppose response, we will get some data. For example, our expectation is data. And rejected means what we will get if it is rejected?
Be unable to fetch the data.
Sorry?
Unable to fetch the data. Error.
Yeah, that means error information, right? So even before either fulfilled or rejected, what will be the status of pending? Like response for the pending in general. If you don't provide any value, if you don't provide any information, if it is something, what will be the chance in JavaScript? Tell me.
Undefined.
Yeah, if nothing is there, naturally we will say that undefined. So here, this promise object, okay, promise object, okay, promise is an object, and what is the purpose of that? Everything we are going to learn step by step. But before that, you should understand some fundamentals. So if you see, this promise object mainly holds status and response of the asynchronous call. So the status, there will be a chance that pending, either pending or fulfilled or rejected. And response, if it is fulfilled, it will send a response, either data or the information in XML format or JSON format, whatever it is, we are expecting some data. And if it is rejected, definitely we will expect that, right? Error information. Okay, why it is rejected? Whether it is a 401 error or like a 404 error, lots of error codes are there. Okay, we need exact information that why it is rejected. So this promise is an object which is going to hold the eventual success or failure of an asynchronous call. So this is simply what is a promise? Is an object. It will hold status of an asynchronous call. At the same time, it will hold the response of the asynchronous call. Okay, just don't worry. You don't need to buy hard, or you don't need to you don't need to break your head. So just follow these things. By end of this session, you will get a full clarity. Okay, fine. Understood so far? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. There is a chance that status may be pending or fulfilled or rejected. Or response, if we don't have any response, that will be undefined. If it is successful, we should have a get the data. If it is failed, at least we should know the error information. That's it. That is a simple object. Okay, where we are going to use promises, when it is going to execute promises, and what this promise will do, those things we can learn in step by step. So let's see. So now, whenever we have sent an asynchronous call through this fetch API, it is returning a promise. Okay, it is returning a promise. Okay, before understanding what is this, then let's delete that. Let's delete that. So what we understand, whenever we invoke a fetch API, what we are saying, it will return a promise. It will return a promise. Let's see whether it really returning a promise or not. So here I'm just putting like my first promise or my promise. Okay, let's see. This is really interesting and it will give lots of twists and turns. So we should be ready for that. So let's see first of all what is there in that promise. It is returning a promise, or because it is returning an object, that object is a promise, and that object is holding the status of an asynchronous call, or if it is successful we will get a response data, and if it is failure it should hold that error information. Let's see whether it is doing in that way or not. So I'm just going to hit that. So there, here we have the JavaScript file, so HTML file. So inspect, go to the console. Yes, did you get a chance to see the promise object or not? Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if you see what we have done here, console.log start, okay, it is printed start, and we have executed asynchronous call. Simply we have given a URL that to do. This is the API endpoint, and we have given this URL so that it is written a promise to, and it will store in that object that is called my promise. I just did console.log. So just tell me what will be the value of in this promise, whether it will be pending state or fulfill state or something else.
Pending.
Because how much time it will take to execute this one? Within like milliseconds, right? So don't worry. So let's expand it. What happened? What is it saying?
Fulfilled.
Fulfilled.
Okay, when it has fulfilled, let's see. Let me
within a
execute one more
millisecond.
time. Okay, quickly. Now here it is showing pending. Here it is showing fulfilled, right? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So then what is the difference here? So here don't get confused, because whenever we are going to do console.log of that promise, console.log of that, because JavaScript is not going to wait for anyone. So it is just send a request to the server, and immediately whenever you send a request to the server, it has written the promise, and at the time whenever you do console.log my promise, at the time, yes, definitely that is a pending state, and console.log end is done. Then what will happen for this my promise? So this is just a object, right? This is the just object, but here let's understand the beauty of this promises, what is happening internally in the browser. So let me add the diagram. Okay, so this is the call stack. What is this?
Web API.
This is
Event loop.
Event loop.
Event loop.
this is
Micro task.
Macro task queue.
this is
Microtask.
Fallback queue.
Fallback queue.
So here we have a simple 4 lines of code. So I think it's not possible to add here. Okay, let's no problem. So whenever we do console.log start, okay, before that what will happen? It will create in a global
Execution context.
execution context, and whenever we do console.log start, so it will print start. That we
Start.
know. We know it's very simple. It will print start. Okay, then we are invoking a asynchronous call. So previously, whenever we do set timeout, what will happen? It will attach a timer in the web API, right? Yes or no? Yes or no? Whenever we invoke set timeout, set interval, what will happen? It will
Yes,
attach a
yes.
timer
It
or
will
no
let us timer.
in the
Yes,
web
yes.
API. So what will happen whenever we invoke a fetch API? Whenever we invoke fetch API, what will happen now? So it will who will take care of this request? Web API.
Web API.
So web API. In that we have the fetch API, right? Yes or no? Because we are using that fetch API. So what will happen whenever we just invoke this fetch API, and if once you have given that endpoint, what we said, it will give a promise. Okay, let me take this as a different one. So it has given one promise. What I told you in a promise, there are two things. One is status, another one is
Response.
will hold the status and response. So anything, maybe anything. So initially, what you have done, we have sent a request. So whenever we just send a request, immediately it will create a promise and it will return to us. If you want to store in a variable, that is your choice. Even though if you don't store, okay, even though if you don't store that value, no problem. So whenever we invoke this fetch API, yes, what it will do, it will hold an object that is called a promise object, and we have sent a request to the server. Okay, just imagine, just now we have sent a request to the server, and what is the status of this object? Status, that is pending response. So far we don't have any data, right? Because still that is pending state, that is what is the response, what is the information of that response key? That is undefined. We have sent a request, that's it. So JavaScript doesn't do anything. Then now what we are doing, console.log
And
console.log n, so that we have printed end, that's it, and it will remove this global execution context. That's it. Okay, that's what we have done so far. Okay, but what is the use of attaching? We have sent a request to the server, but we need a response, right? Once we got the response, we should able to display that data, or we should do at least console.log of data, right? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
You want to see the data, or you have sent a request to the server, that's it.
I need to see the data also.
We need to see the data, right? We need to see the data. So here, if you see, you have sent the request to the server, okay, JavaScript already done the task, so it has created a global execution context, and it has do console.log start, and whenever we invoke the fetch API, okay, it is just hand over that responsibility to the web API. So that it has given a request to the server, and then it went to console.log of end. It is also done. Then global execution gone. So, but here, this web API, this browser keep on checking the status of this object. Okay, what is happening? So, observe carefully. So we have sent a request to server, right? Suppose just imagine after 5 seconds, we got the data. Okay, we got the response from the server. So what will happen once we got the response from the server? Once we got the response from the server, this web API, this browser, this JavaScript runtime environment will take care of that, and it will update the data, right? Once you got the response, you will change the status or not?
Yes, sir. It will change to, I think, fulfill.
So it will update. Okay, once you got the response, suppose if it is successful, what is the status of that object? That is
Fulfilled.
fulfilled. And once you got the data, we should store that data into the response key, right? Yes or no? Yeah, we got the data. So now we have a promise object. In that there is a key called status, and that is fulfilled, and response is also, we got the response also, that is data. Now what we need to do? Because we should inform to the JavaScript engine, right? Hey, Baba, we got the data. Could you please do console.log? Okay, then what we need to do? So if you see, this promise object is really, really beautiful. It is just holding, it is not just holding the status and response. Okay, it is just providing another methods also. Observe carefully, another method. So one of the method is, what is that? Then.
Not then.
Yes or no? Okay, this promise object have another method, inbuilt method, that is then. So what you can do, how we can use this then method now, how we can use this then method now? Observe carefully, this is another a function, right? So here if you give any function, if you give any function to that then method, it is going to invoke this function, callback, right? If whenever we are passing a function to another function, what we can call that passing function? That's a callback function, right? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Maybe you got a lot of confusion. Don't worry, I will explain in detail. So if you see, this then method accepts a callback function. This then method accepts a callback function. So what it will do? It will take this data as an input. This data as an input. Observe carefully. I will explain one more time also. This callback function accepts this data as an input, and if you want to do with that data, you can do anything. So if you see, I'm just doing, hey, callback function. What you need to do, just take whatever the data you got from the response, just do a console.log. Yes or no? Let's do that. Interested?
Yes, sir.
So now what I'm doing here, I'm just putting dot then. It's clearly saying that, hey, fetch, just send a request to the server. Just create an object before, whenever you are going to get some data from the server, here just create a promise object. In that, once you got the response, just update the status and update the data also. Then after completing that, once the status is updated, once the status is updated from pending to fulfilled, automatically I will invoke this then method. So here, if you give any callback function, I will hand over that data to you. Yes or no? Console.log. Let's see actually what is there in the JSON placeholder. Yeah. So this, okay, response. Okay, here it is. It will give a response, of course, no problem. Okay, whatever the response you got, Okay, I want to do the console.log of that response. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Let's see the output. So what I'm saying, so just understand the flow one more time. Console.log start, it will print a start, and just fetch API, I'm giving a URL. So just it will push that responsibility to web API, and before hitting that response, before hitting that REST API to the server, it will return a promise. The promise is an object. It will hold the status and the response of that object, and it has some inbuilt methods also ready to execute once we got the response. So one after 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 100 seconds or 1 year doesn't matter. Once you got the data, if it is successful, it will update the status to fulfilled, and response, whatever the response you got, it will store that response into that. Then automatically there is a method called then is there. It will invoke that method, and there is a callback function. So what it will do? It will push. It will push this callback function. It will push. This is the callback function, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
It will push this callback function into the micro task queue. So now event loop is ready. Event loop is waiting, and okay, call stack is empty for a long time. So let's execute this callback function into the call stack. So let's see whether it is working the same way or not, whether we will get a response after some time or not, because maybe it is very fast. uh, Maybe we'll get a response very fast. Yes or no? We got the response.
Yes, sir.
Happy? Happy or not?
Very much.
We got the response. So this is how that working. So now observe carefully. This is the response. This is not a promise. This is not a promise. This is a response that, okay, don't worry, don't try to too much. Okay, here the status code is 200, mean that is successful, and we got the data. Where is the data? Body. Maybe here. Actually, what will happen? The promises, once you got the data into that promise, so it will come. The response will come in a which format? Which format?
Listen.
Yes. Okay. Here there is a facility that, hey Raghu, why you are worrying too much? So I will help you. I will help you. I can convert your data into what? Into what? Tell me, into which format?
JSON. JSON
JSON. So
format.
we got the response before returning, before giving to you. I can convert into JSON format. Let's see whether you got the data or not. Very good. But what happened here? Can anyone guess what happened? I just asked the response in a JSON format. But what it is doing? What it has written?
It written like pending promise.
It has written another promise. Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Understood or not?
It's
So
Okay,
if
so we need to resolve it again, I think.
yes, we need to resolve it again. Okay. But here, whenever we are using a fetch API, whenever we got the data, whenever we do response.json, what it is doing, what it is doing, what it is doing, it is returning another promise. Oh my God. Oh my God. What is that? It is returning Tell me what it is returning.
Another promise pending.
Another promise.
Another promise. Okay, actually here internally whether it is returning from here to here or here to here, really I need to get some clarity. But it is returning another promise. So tell me what will happen in the promise. What are the fundamental rules? Status and
Response. Response.
response. Okay, initially what is the status?
Pending.
Pending, and response will be undefined. So once it
Undefined.
is resolved, that means once it is fulfilled, once it is complete, means conversion of that into a JSON completely, the status will be
Fulfilled.
fulfilled and response
Fulfill
will be
data.
data.
Completed.
Data, right?
Data.
With data. Data.
Only here, whether this is the state. What is the state here now? Fulfilled. What is the response?
Array.
That means exact information. Now you will get the data. So we can do one thing. We can just go back to one more step back, because we just what we have done here. We did a console.log of response.json, right? Yes or no? So let's understand what is there in the first promise, right? Because this is returning, right? Yes or no? For understanding purpose, let's understand what is there inside that this promise. What is there inside this promise? That's what we can do. Okay. What is there inside? So let's do console.log. Refresh. Yes or no? This is another. This is a fundamental promise, right? Here, this is fulfilled. Yes or no? Fulfilled, and this is a response. So just expand that. Expand that. This response. Whenever we are doing response.json, okay, here. So we need to understand the prototypal inheritance. Where is that then method? Okay, that we can discuss later. Right now, okay. If you see, there is a method called JSON. Yes or no? Are you able to see or not? JSON. Are you able to
Yes,
see
sir.
or not? Okay, I will tell you what is prototype inheritance, why it is showing. But just right now, just understand that. Okay, we have a state object, that is a promise state. Another one is promise result. Okay, that promise result. So the state, it will have a pending, fulfilled or rejected, and here the response. So here what we are doing, whenever we do response dot a JSON, again it is returning another promise.
Promise.
So here again it will follow the same rule. So once you convert that response to the JSON properly, so again it will invoke which method? Which method? Then
Then
method.
not there.
Okay. Because this promise object also have a then method. This promise also have a then method. Okay. So then this promise, what is then? Then is a method. It will accept another. What's
Callback
that?
function.
Callback function. Now it will pass the data. Observe carefully
Parameter.
here. So if you see the first promise, we are getting the response. So whenever we do response.json, again it is returning another promise.
Promise.
So in that promise, once it is fulfilled, it is executing then method of second promise. And again, we are converting the JSON data, right? So it is giving that JSON response to that callback function. Then you can do console.log. Now if you see, so now here we have invoked the fetch API, and it is just sending a response. So here, instead of that, what we are doing, so it is returning another promise, because that is predefined. That is predefined. So you can't change the behavior of that. So here, this response dot JSON. Just a minute. Hello? Oh my God. So it is returning another JSON. Then because if you see whenever you are putting then means that is this callback is returning another promise. Once it is fulfilled, it is going to execute this then method. This then method again have a callback function. So first time we got the response. Here we are converting that response into the JSON format, and that promise will return that response. That store it will store that response into the second promise, and it will return that data. So now here the data. So now you can do whatever you want. Console.log the data. Let's see. A is not a function. Yes, of course. We do some code. So if you see, you got the data or not?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
No. Yes or no? So it will return a promise. Maybe there is a chance that I'm not sure whether it is because whenever it is returning a promise, whether this promise is there inside the microtask queue. Once that promise written another one, maybe it will be there here, then it will push that callback function little bit. I need to investigate, but right now you don't need to break your head. Simply understand like this, so that whenever you invoke this callback function is going to be there in this microtask queue, then event loop is going to push and it will execute. And suppose if it is invoking if it is returning another promise, so just imagine whether it will store in the web API or this there. I don't know the location actually, but definitely it will hold the state and result. And once the state is fulfilled, again it will invoke the callback function. That callback function will come into the microtask queue, and then it will move to the main thread and it will execute that, and you will get the result. That's what happening in the back. So now tell me everyone, do you really understand or not?
Yes, sir.
What, yes? Understood or not?
Understood, sir. Need to
Got it, sir.
practice it.
Tell me what is the promise?
Um, it holds status of the asynchronous and response of the status and response of the asynchronous
That's it. Promise is an object. First, we should say that what it is, whether it is a function, whether it is a class, or whether it is an object. What it is an object, right?
object.
We should mention that promise is an object which holds
State and
status and
response.
result of an asynchronous call. So, but even whatever I said, that is not in a good formation. Let's go and see the documentation. You can now tell me, just read it out. The promise object represents the, read it out.
So you
The prom
Okay, sorry, I didn't share my screen. Oh my God. Stop sharing.
Number.
Yeah. Now read it out. Everyone, what is a promise? The promise object represents, means promise is an object. It represents the eventual completion or failure. If it is successful, it is completion. If it is failure, that is rejected of an asynchronous operation, and its resulting value. That's it, right? This is very, very simple. Now, one by one, just read it out. At least you will remember for a few days. First, Niharika, just read it out what it is.
The promise object represents the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation and its resulting value.
Okay. Now, without reading this, without watching this, what you understand in that, just form a sentence.
Um, it represents the fulfill completion, completing the task or failure of the task will and it holds the result.
Okay. Now, again, just think for 30 seconds and imagine, just tell me, promise is object, then
From
it will
then
hold what? Like that.
State and
it
response.
holds status of the asynchronous operation and the response or result of asynchronous operation.
It's simple. So we should remember the four keywords. What it is, first one is promise is an object, right? And
Yes.
what what is the purpose of the promise? For asynchronous call, right? Asynchronous call. And it will hold asynchronous calls status and result.
Response.
Response. That's it. The fourth thing. we
Status
are we
and
are
result.
using promises to handle asynchronous calls. Whenever we send a request through asynchronous call, we will have a promise. That promise will hold the status of that asynchronous call, at the same time the result of the asynchronous call. That's just very, very simple. And now, Pankaj, yeah, tell me in your general words, not like this documentation.
Promise is a object which handles asynchronous call, and it holds status and a result of the synchronous call.
That's it. Mayur, can you try?
Yes, sir. So promise is like a synchronous operation, which can fetch any value. So it will result. It is the object which result in a value. I think just like that. Need to work on that.
Okay, we should go back and just frame the sentence one or two times. Once you've done a practice,
Yeah, yeah,
you will
exactly.
get that clarity.
So
Okay.
you are not recording this thing.
Already it is there in the live in YouTube, so automatically it will.
Oh, okay.
And who is there? Sujan, can you try? Yeah, just read it out. Okay, maybe Sujan is not there. Okay, fine. So maybe who are watching this video, maybe you are getting bored right here. Why you are asking to read it out? Okay, I'm asking you also who are watching this video, just read it out, because in interview, suddenly they will ask what is the promise. You will say that okay, promise this and that, that and this. No, okay. If you explain, first you should understand the concept. Without understanding, don't by heart it. So promise is an object, and we are using this concept to handle the asynchronous calls. So whenever we send a request through asynchronous call, so it will return a promise. That promise is going to store or hold the status of the asynchronous call and the result of that asynchronous call. It's simple. So even if you watch Akshay Sini's explanation, he has explained in another level. So go on, read out it. So now let's understand in a simple way. Okay. Okay. Now tell me in real life, just forget about the promise in JavaScript. Okay, Pankaj, just tell me in your life, did you given any promise to anyone?
I have to uh, think about this thing. Yeah, I think I have given a promise to someone.
Okay,
I want to throw a party for something, then I fulfill the promise.
you fulfill the promise. Okay,
Yeah.
if you fulfill that happy. Otherwise,
Uh, he or she will be sad.
okay, fine. Okay, any promises by Mayur? Did you get
Any
any?
promise?
Tell me one more. I don't know. Okay, go ahead, Mayur. Tell me your experience with promises in your life.
I already given a promise, but it's still pending.
Still pending. What is that?
Nothing. Just like I have to give a book. So I'm still reading it. So I'm not able to give it to someone else, which I
Okay,
already promised that I will complete it in 2 weeks, but it's still pending.
okay. Niharika, did you get a chance in any costliest or important promise in your life?
Um, Nothing, sir. Just one. That is for my father in marriage matter. I will listen. I said I will listen. And that's it, sir. I didn't promise anything for anyone.
That is the most important promise now.
Yeah, and I fulfilled it.
Okay, very good, fantastic. Okay, I will explain one my real time experience with promises. Okay, so there is a saying, right? Don't give a promise whenever you are in happy mood, right? And don't take decisions whenever you are in angry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is very important to follow, but it's very difficult to follow that rule. Okay, actually,
That is true, sir.
it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Okay, actually, um, the costliest mistake, costliest promise in my life is the cost of that promise is 70,000 rupees. Okay, by that, okay, at the time I didn't earn 70,000 rupees. Actually, I didn't earn, even I didn't see that 70,000 rupees in my hand actually. But I have paid 70,000 rupees for that promise. So that's the costliest one. Of course, that is the um, what we can say, the turning point in my life.
I
Okay,
like the
so
ringtone.
so it took around 1 year to complete that EMI for that 70,000. I just give a simple promise to my friend. Okay, I just give a simple promise to my friend. After that, it just came into my head. They came on top of my head, and I paid that 70,000 rupees. I've taken,
Sir,
yeah.
it, it's a big thing that you fulfilled fulfilled your promise, and it's a big thing, sir.
uh,
Uh,
okay, fine.
I've never,
Here, okay,
yes,
those are the simple things, silly things actually. So, but now we are going to give a, because um, the bigger promise is going to start project from
19 September.
19th.
19th.
So
Yeah,
that is the most interesting thing which is going to be happen. So if it is work out properly, then definitely it will help more people. Okay, and
yes.
everyone should be ready because it's not that much easy. I'm not going to explain each and everything like classroom. Okay, for loop, I will give of 10 examples for loop, or promises I will explain in detail with examples. Not in that way. So whatever you have learned so far, that is enough to learn by yourself. Okay, you should do a self learning, quick learning, and by doing a project, you should able to learn. Okay, a lot of things are happening. Okay, come back to the topic. So I just asked that promises are very important in our life. At the same time, promises are very important in JavaScript. Okay, so now I think this is enough for today. And again, there is a concept called promise chain, right? Promise chain. Did you experience that promise chain in this example?
Yes, I think promise after promise.
Yes, that is a promise chain. Because if you see, whenever we invoke this fetch API initially, it is giving a promise, right?
Yes,
Yes or no? It is giving a promise. That is, just imagine that is a promise. One. And once it is fulfilled, we are invoking then method. What is happening? This then method is again returning,
second promise.
and then it is fulfilled. Of course, it is returning
It
the
will
data.
provide
That's why
data.
only one level of promise. But in real time, there is a possibility that this first promise will return promise 2. This promise again will return a promise 3. This promise may return again another promise. So this is called what?
Promise chain.
Promise
Promise
chain.
chain.
Simply a promise. Okay. So this is enough for today. So just go back and watch this video, or once you understand, and now go and watch Aksasini's explanation. And even I will forward some another videos also, because now you are able to digest those concepts easily. And tomorrow I'm going to, here it is returning a promise, right? Here it is returning a promise. But exactly, we also can create our own promises. Okay, let's understand how to create our own promise. And we understand, right? One example, that the pizza, right? We have a callback function. We are passing another callback function. So let's solve that problem. I will try to solve that problem through what? Promises.
Promise.
Promise.
So by the time, just practice this one, because there's nothing to do much practice here. But watch Aksasini's explanation. Maybe if you have confusion, just watch our explanation one more time, and I will forward you one or two videos. Just go through that. And I'm saying, you are good at JavaScript. Whatever the concepts we have discussed so far, if you are understood this concept, if you are able to utilize this knowledge in any application, you got the, hopefully we got the right foundation. There are lots of concepts are there. Currying is there, even bubbling, okay, ify functions, hundreds of concepts are there, even prototypal inheritance, everything is there. But this, whatever we have learned so far, this is enough to start learning React.js, Node.js, Express.js, MongoDB, or any other applications. Absolutely. So we can learn parallelly that what is a prototypal inheritance, and all those things we can learn parallel. Okay. Yeah. Now tell me, do you have any questions?
So why we use promise and where we use promise? Why where it helps us?
In JavaScript, whenever you are sending a request to the server, we are using promise. Whenever we are dealing with what?
JSON or
Asynchronous calls.
okay.
Wherever there is asynchronous call, because we should have a confidence, right? Suppose if you're dealing asynchronous call with a, two options are there. One is callbacks, another one is
Promise.
promises. That's it. Okay. These callbacks, we don't know. If we give a callback function to another callback function, whether it will execute or not, whether it will execute 2 times, 3 times, 100 times, we don't know, right? So, but promise will give you exactly, because this promise is going to execute then method only once. Promise is going to execute this, like if it is failure, it is going to execute that cache method only once. We have a lot of surety, right? Before giving a vote to any politician, there is no guarantee, right? They will give lots of promises, but there is no guarantee for those promises. So in JavaScript, yes, JavaScript engine, JavaScript environment, this browser, and even Node.js is giving 100% guarantee for these promises. Okay, but callbacks, we don't know. This callbacks is like that. So this term, the politician will say that we will change the education system, and we will give a 1 lakh jobs. Okay, And again, after 5 years, again he will say that, okay, if you give a power to us, again we will give you 1 lakh jobs. Again, after 5 years also he will do the same. We don't know whether he is going to give a 1 lakh jobs or whether we are losing our own job. We don't know, right? So don't trust callbacks. Don't trust politicians. Trust leaders. So if anyone who follows the a truth and who have some credibility, those are leaders, so we can trust their promises. Okay, lots of things are there because this is not the last session to discuss on promises. This is the first session, and minimum we are going to discuss, of course, by this Friday or Saturday, uh, we are going to discuss only about the promises. Okay. Yeah, the question you have asked, the question when we will use, whenever wherever the asynchronous programming is there in JavaScript, we are going to use promises. Yeah, okay, that's all for today. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye, sir.